X-Men Season 2, Episode 8, The Deadman's Hand. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen it, click out, come back later once you have. Well, Gambit's back, finally. After his tragic death in Episode 5, Season 1, we finally got Gambit back. Well, sort of. We got Death and then possibly Gambit back once they figure out how to revive him and get rid of Apocalypse, who's kind of residing inside him. So this episode is heavily focused on Gambit, which is very reminiscent of the original X-Men series, Season 2, Episode 6, titled Externally Yours. So very similar to what they did in the Externally Yours episode in the old series, in this episode, they took us back to Gambit's home in New Orleans. Having been to New Orleans, I really appreciated the scenic backdrops that showed us what New Orleans actually looks like. We get somewhat of a dream-like sequence that turned into a nightmare where Rogue is back in Genosha with Gambit, dancing with him instead of with Magneto. Cut over to the X-Men team sitting around casually playing poker, which was a nice touch because it actually shows what they do in their downtime, but also it was a nod to the fact that this is in fact a Gambit episode. So not only did we have a fun little banter at the poker table, but we got a ton of card and card game like puns, which is something Gambit actually did in the original show as well. So they just kind of went all out. It felt like they just sat around and was trying to one up each other in the writing room, like who can come up with as many puns as possible that works in the context of this dialogue. But I'm there for it. I liked it. Poker night gets interrupted when Cable and the X-Force team show up carrying no other than the corpse of Apocalypse, which is still a striking image. It's just something very oddly disturbing and off-putting about seeing Apocalypse all shriveled up and in a skeleton-like form. I was kind of expecting more of a scientific observation of what happened to Apocalypse's body, but they really just kind of stood around and talked, and that was the end of it as far as what we did with Apocalypse's body. So I would have liked to have seen more, like exploring and doing some advanced technological testing to see if they could figure out more clues as to what happened. It just felt kind of rushed to not acknowledge the fact that you have Apocalypse's body in front of you to do whatever you like in terms of experimenting and extracting data and information from it. Throughout this episode, they didn't bother to explain exactly what happened to Apocalypse. I mean, obviously Gambit is running around as Death, and we learn later that he's kind of possessed by Apocalypse, but that doesn't explain what actually happened. Like, did Gambit, acting as himself, kill Apocalypse, and why? I'm not really sure. Or was it part of Apocalypse's plan all along to leave his body and to inhabit part of Gambit's consciousness to kind of control him? I'm not really clear on that, but if you have a theory on that or an answer, I'd love to hear it in the comments. The great thing about X-Force dropping in on the X-Mansion and getting them to go on this mission to find and locate Gambit, supposedly to save him from himself, is that you get some reunions, right? You get to see Jubilee back with the X-Men, which is a nice little reunion because she's been off doing her X-Force thing this whole time. You also get Cyclops and Jean reunited with Nathan Summers, their son, who still kind of has a chip on his shoulder about the whole situation. But Cyclops and Jean are trying their hardest to bond with him and to connect with him. And that's kind of an ongoing tension that we're going to see with the Summers family, I think. So once Gambit becomes Death, the first thing he does is call a meeting between the Guild of Assassins and the Guild of Thieves, which we saw in that old episode. Using his dark powers, he takes over their minds completely by using his cards and converting them into these mindless, obedient followers. And eventually puts Rogue to sleep to kidnap her. During the dinner scene, we learn that he's just trying to convince her to join him and become immortal so that they can be happy and together and that death can't even separate them. But then I wonder, what was his real angle there? Was that really his true intention? And was it really Remy/Gambit that was trying to do that? Or is that Apocalypse in control of Remy and dictating all of these things for a bigger plan? Nice little retcon where they use External, who also appeared in that old episode, as kind of the facilitator of this ceremony where they offer something to her and she increases her powers as a result. It gets really pissy if they don't have any offerings. But they basically made External Apocalypse's love interest at some point in time and in history, and he offered a part of his power through this relic or this stone, which he accepts and immediately betrays. Somehow, Gambit knows he needs to get that stone from External in order to grant Rogue the power of immortality to live by his side. So in mid-speech, he stabs her through the heart and takes her life pretty quickly, and then grabs a stone to do what he intended to do. Cable actually lied to the X-Men team and to Jubilee. He was always intending to kill Gambit, knowing that Apocalypse was living inside of him. They used Professor X's Cerebra, which is a cool upgraded version of Cerebro, and it looked more like, I guess, the movie version of it. So that was kind of cool to see their upgrade in that Cerebro room. But it does really show the true nature of Cable Nathan Summers, that he will stop at nothing to stop Apocalypse, and his morality is kind of blurred in the process, even if it means hurting people along the way. But when his mom, Jean Grey, gets in the way of his shot, of course he doesn't take the shot. He's not going to shoot his own parent. We later learned that Sunspot and Jubilee leave the X-Force team, presumably to join the X-Men again after his shenanigans with trying to kill Gambit. I'm pretty sure that left a bad taste in their mouth. And it really calls into question to what extent can the X-Men team even trust Cable and to work with Cable in future conflicts with common enemies. A very cool little twist was when Gambit revealed that whole dream sequence was actually not a dream, and that it was him trying to warn her. We do get that sweet panoramic shot of almost the entire X-Men and X-Force team standing against Gambit and his possessed henchmen, and that was just a great shot in a nice little battle, although I was surprised to see Nightcrawler being possessed and just owning the entire X-Men and X-Force team. I mean, there's that first-person shot where he's just going around slapping the crap out of everybody. And it's like, dude, like if I had that power, that's exactly what I'd be doing all the time, right? Another great action sequence was when you get all the telekinetic people. So you have Jean Grey taking the back end of the jet, and then you have Psylocke trying to control the front nose of the jet, and then Cyclops pleading with Cable, like, we need all of the telekinetic people to join in and help us out, and we can do this. Question for y'all. So do we think Rogue's dialogue with Apocalypse, talking to him about finding love and hoping that he finds love for the sake of everyone, did that influence his later decision when he does meet External and falls in love with her and offers his power to her? I tend to think that was the intent of the writers, but let me know if you thought that was kind of where they're going with that whole thing. Xavier joins the fight when he enters Gambit's mind to fight him in his head, and we get this really kind of abstract battle where finally Rogue also joins in somehow and pulls Gambit, the real Gambit, out and away from Apocalypse. And at the end of it, he turns back to his normal appearance and seemingly is back to his normal self, except that Apocalypse is still lingering in his consciousness somewhere. So they got to figure out how to expel him, basically like an exorcism, to pull Apocalypse out so they can have Remy LeBeau / Gambit free from any of that, which I'm sure they're going to pull off. And I'm so glad that it took a while for us to get here, because that was still kind of haunting to not have the beloved Gambit character back in full force. We only have one episode left, with the ending being kind of a cliffhanger, with X-Force being confronted by X-Factor, and it looked like they're about to throw down against each other, but in fact, X-Factor wants to cooperate with X-Force. And they had a shot of this card that said Tower. I have no idea what that means. So if anyone knows what that's referencing to or what we can expect, without spoiling a possible ending for the last episode, let me know in the comments. But overall, love this episode for the fact that it was very heavily focused on Gambit. It was a throwback to the old Gambit episode. Happy that we got Gambit back in his true form to kind of close that circle moving into the season finale. But what are your predictions? Are we going to face Apocalypse one last time? Because there's been so much buildup for Apocalypse, but it's kind of confusing the status of where he is. Is he just a subconscious being inside Gambit's head now? Or is he going to manifest in some other way? What is X-Force and X-Factor going to do next? They got to fill in all those gaps in one more episode. So I'm really excited for the finale. Sad to see it end and have to wait for the next season. But it's been quite a ride. I think they've done a good job of keeping on par with season 1. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this all concludes. See you in the next review.